Hello and welcome to the first Scoutcast of the 2020-21 season from Fantasy Football Scout. It's that time of the pre-season planning where the doubts creep in and the best laid plans are ripped up. Suddenly, before you know it, you've got triple leads and you've got Fulham's goalkeeper and you wondered where it all went wrong. My name is Joe.
My name's Az.
My name's Andy.
Welcome everyone. Az, what's on the show?
Well, surprisingly, some people have got some questions about what to do with their teams going into the first game week. So we're going to tackle the burning questions. Which premium assets are we targeting? What do we do about City United's blank game week 1? And are there actually any decent 4.5 defenders that we should be considering? We're going to chat about the players in our drafts, reveal how our 15 are shaping up. And then we've got questions over fixtures over the next 4 to consider. Joe's going to pick a differential, which I can't wait for, as he looks to steal a march on us and hopefully help you steal a march on your rivals.
Yes, indeed. So, yeah, it's exciting. It feels like we haven't been away. With that, we probably haven't. It's only been a few weeks. And we've had loads of pre-season videos and podcasts. So hopefully there should be no excuse. We should all be getting top 100 in the overall rankings. Well, anyway, that's the plan. Let's just move on. Usually we look at our teams for the previous game week. It's game week 1. We've got no previous game week. So we're just going to head in with the community questions, really. And first of all, the way we're going to divide it up, we're going to have a look at defence, and then we're going to look a bit more into the midfield and attack, and then we're going to look about the tricky game week 1 blank conundrum. We'll talk about fixtures as well, and then obviously at the very end of this we've got our team reveal. So we're going to talk all the way through the show about the players who are in our team as well, but nice handy picture, and for the podcast listeners I'll go through those finally at the end as well. So let's move on to defence really. Alexander-Arnold, well, that's the guy in the picture here. He's got to be in everyone's team. I think he's in like 56% of teams or so. So, yeah, we had loads of questions as well. Summit on Twitter was pretty much summed it up, really. Is having 2 premiums, like Alexander-Arnold and Robertson, worth the compromise in attack? And if you're going for 4 cheap defenders, who are the best? Now it looks like Vinagre is on the move. So there's rumours that he's off to Porto, allegedly. Benny Blanco asks, we've gone from a smorgasbord of 4.5 defenders to slim pickings. Do we need to rethink going small at the back? And that's because everyone's got all these 4.5 assets going on there. So FPL Jogger asks, given COVID and the possibility of players isolating, is it worth picking sure starters and ignoring the 4.0 risky bench players like Mitchell and Ferguson? So Az, let's go with you first. What's your goalkeeper defence looking like at the moment, and what's your sort of key issues? You know, what are you thinking? You know, with all those questions in mind, looking at the Liverpool defenders and also those cheap 4.5 ones as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think the most surprising thing about Trent is the fact that 44% of people don't own him, if anything. He's just an absolute lock-in, surely, for anyone taking the game relatively seriously. I mean, I know he hasn't had much of a pre-season, but, back to back, I mean, nearly 200 points in his first season and then 200 points last season for 7.5 million. I mean, it's just absolutely crazy. So he's an easy one. I think the bigger question is, do you pair Robertson with him? Because, if you had a 7 million midfielder or a 7 million striker who's getting anywhere near 200 points, you'd be absolutely ecstatic with that. So do you back him again to reach those heights? Are Liverpool going to have the same desire to win every match and play the way they do, or is there going to be a bit of a dip like we saw after quarantine? That's kind of the question. I think there's a real case for starting with both of them. I haven't got it currently, and I'd say actually I'm struggling in defence this year. No real 4.0 options other than Mitchell and Ferguson, like you say. Mitchell isn't first choice, but he's playing because of injuries. Ferguson looks like he could be first choice and displace Ward, but he's injured. So when we need him right at the start, he doesn't look like he's going to be playing. So there's a tricky one there. And I mean, the 4.5 options are really giving me grief. I don't know about you, but I mean, Vinagre weirdly is kind of essential to how I've got my team set up, like for the first few weeks. And if he's looking like he's not going to play, then I've got some issues. And I mean, when you're relying on a 4.5 defender like that, then you're asking for trouble. The only other ones I really like are Charlie Taylor, 4.5, for people who aren't going with Pope. I like Lamptey at Brighton, playing as a wing back or as a full back. I think he's getting forward quite a bit, not registering attacking returns yet, but he's such a good player. Like, he's just so good.
So what's your sort of thinking with defence at the moment then? Are you thinking a mixture of premium and these 4.5s, but you obviously hate all the 4.5s, so are you going to go big at the back? What's your plan?
I've got Trent and Doherty at the moment, so relatively pricey. I've got Tierney as well at 5.5, who I like, but I'm not entirely sure about. I like his first two fixtures. I like the prospect that he could play really attacking, but his stats aren't great. And then a 4.5. So I'm investing quite a bit in defence because I think you kind of have to this year. That's my thoughts anyway.
Yeah, no, I sort of agree. Well, I'll come to my team in a minute. Andy, what's your thinking with defence? With some of those questions from the community in mind.
Yeah, I don't think it's an issue if you want Trent and Robertson. It's not. I mean, it literally is detrimental to elsewhere, but they score so many points. I don't think it's an issue. If you wanted Robertson instead of a £6-7 million forward or whatever, I don't think that's a huge issue really. If that's the way you want to go, I've not got it right now. I think the fact they play Arsenal and Chelsea in Game 2 and 3 kind of puts me off a little bit. I know they're very attacking, but we still want those clean sheets at the end of the day. And I think maybe one against Leeds potentially. I know a lot of people think Leeds are going to do really well. But the opening fixtures don't necessarily scream both of them. But at the same time, if we're not looking to wildcard early, it's probably best just to get them in now and not have to worry about the transfer later. So I don't have an issue with it. The 4.5s definitely look a lot weaker than they did when the game first launched. And I actually like a lot of the £5 million defenders. I think that's potentially where the value is. So I think if I look at my team right now, I think I've got one 4.5 who's Justin, and even him I'm not completely sold on because he's not nailed long term. Evans is suspended. There's a lot of kind of doubts for me there. John Joe Kenny would be an interesting one if he ends up playing as the right back for Everton. But again, we're probably not going to know that before game week 1. So there's a bunch of 5s that I like. So Seiss at Wolves, I really want a Wolves defender. Vinagre is obviously the one. There's all this talk about them signing Tellez as well. He's not going to be 5 million, no way, but he could be a decent option.
He looks exactly what I want.
Yeah, 5.5 or 6. I'm hoping that a lot of people are saying even if he was 6.5, they'd still get him. That's how attacking he is. But yeah, he's someone I'm looking at. But 5 million, I even think Luke Shaw right now. If Man United don't sign a new left back, Man United one of the best defences last year. It doesn't matter what you think of them, they were one of the best defences last year. So going in 5 million, pretty good fixtures to start with, as we know, because everyone's going for the attackers. He's someone you could just leave in. Same with Seiss.
You don't think Williams is going to play a bit?
I don't think so. I think last year, Shaw for someone who's had some fitness concerns in the past, post-lockdown, he pretty much played every single game when he was fit. So I don't think there's a huge issue with Williams, to be honest. He could play at some point, but I wouldn't. Not enough concerns to not have a £5 million Man United defender. I think it's just much better option than any of the 4.5s. And then the rest of them, it's all kind of a wait and see. Reece James would be amazing, but we just don't know if he's nailed. Whoever the centre-back is at Chelsea, I'm assuming Thiago Silva is going to be the main one. Whoever's the centre-back at Chelsea could be decent at 5 million as well. Yeah. But for game week 1, it's a tricky one. But that's kind of where I'm looking in the 5 situation.
Sorry. Please.
I was just going to say, this is why I'm not really looking at 4.5. So right now I've got Seiss and Davis, so Spurs and Wolves, knowing that I can maybe swap them later on. Seiss I don't really have an issue with, but Wolves fixtures are so good and they're such a good defence that he's pretty much locked in my team depending on what happens with Tellez and Vinagre. But yeah, I just say, I like the 5 million instead of the 4.5s.
This is the issue that I'm having as well, though, is that I really want to try and limit the amount of defenders that I transfer in and out. So I kind of need to go for the nailed on ones, so that it immediately eliminates quite a few of them. And then you've got players like Charlie Taylor would be perfect. They've got a great run of fixtures, but it's in a few weeks, and I need them now because I've got so few. I mean, some of my drafts I've got like Basuma starting because I've got Taylor instead of Vinagre, which means it's Mitchell or Basuma. It's like my brain is just exploding. So God knows what I'm going to end up with.
Yeah,
I think potentially really quickly, potentially with players like Shaw, Seiss, Davis, they are players you could probably keep for a little while. Like you have to spend an extra 0.5 on them. They're maybe not, players that you're going to be looking to get rid of in a few weeks just because of the defenses they play for. Like Man United and Wolves cover for 10 million. It's pretty decent, I think.
I think there's an argument to consider Manchester United defenders. I did laugh at Luke Shaw, and I probably will continue throughout the season. But I do think there is an argument because last season you could get Greenwood, you could get Martial, and you could get Rashford. And they were really cheap. Well, Greenwood's case really cheap. You could easily get them all in. I don't think you can get 3 attacking Manchester United players and have a sensible, well balanced.
And would you want to? With the amount of other options we've got as well.
So that will free up. Obviously, if you wanted to triple up on Manchester United, they do have very favourable fixtures from Gameweek 2. And so, I don't think it is beyond the realms of reason to have a Manchester United defender. I'm just not particularly prioritising that in my brain at the moment. I've got there's other things as well, like who to captain and things, and that's what I'm looking at with my defence. Really, like Az was saying, I don't really want to be making many transfers. So at the moment, I haven't really got a settled defence in terms of players, but I sort of have in terms of the prices I want. And so in my defence, a lot of people are going for a set and forget keeper and a 4.0 one, Nyland or Button or Walton at Brighton, whoever. But for me, I've gone for Ryan and McCarthy because of COVID, because of isolation. I don't know whether I'm going to need my second keeper. I do not want to be making a keeper transfer. I do not want to be going into a match with just 10, a week with just 10 players. And I like Ryan and McCarthy's fixtures. They dovetail quite nicely. You can move them around. I've always gone for 4.5, but I didn't last season. I did have a good start. It sort of never really came to anything, but I really didn't like just having one keeper. So
I hate rotating keepers.
I love it.
It's the worst. I think your point about COVID is really good. Actually, I hadn't thought about that.
And I think I could just see it. Ryan has to isolate whatever. Goes down a chip shop in Brighton, and there you go. Gets infected, and
I don't know. I know one of the questions was around this and 4 million defenders. I'm not as worried, I don't think. I mean, it could happen, but I feel like the chances are quite slim. And I know things have kind of changed a bit because restrictions and stuff have been lifted since the end of last season. But there wasn't, once players have stopped going on bloody holiday, there wasn't that many cases at the end of 30 to 38. So I don't know if I'm that worried to have a second playing keeper. I mean, it's hard to argue against it. The teams I keep putting together, that extra 0.5 here or there, just really starts to add up. So you've got a 4 million defender on your bench as well. So you're not, as much as you're thinking about goalkeepers, you don't necessarily think you should have 3 bench players.
I don't, because with a goalkeeper, your sub goalkeeper, that's it. You haven't got two spare goalkeepers. But with defenders, if you're going to go, especially at 3 at the back, and you've got 2 sitting on your bench, you can afford. You don't need to go Dendonka deep, as it were, on the bench. You don't need to go into that third territory. So I'm quite happy to have a non-playing 4.0 defender. I remember years ago there was Ferguson at Newcastle. It was a rare treat. He was a 4.0 midfielder. Ooh. And I mocked teams that have it. I was thinking, why are you having? You've got 14 players. You're denying yourself this space in your team. And they all shot above me. And they were right. Because you never go to your third sub. Sometimes you do, but it's very rare. And I don't want to restructure my team on the off chance, so I'm quite happy to go. So 4-0.
That's why that's why I actually like Ferguson, because we don't know for sure if he's just going to suddenly, when he's fit, get into the team. But lots of Crystal Palace fans think he, without the injury, he would be lining up as the right back. Yeah. So I'm actually tempted to start with him. If I don't, for instance, if you've got a Man United player in your Game Week 1 squad, you might need Mitchell. If you don't need that player for Game Week 1, I'm actually tempted to go for Ferguson and just bank on the fact he will become a right back. And if he doesn't, then I've still saved myself some value. I've got 2 other playing.
That's exactly what I'm thinking as well.
I've been asked in the live chat to give my scale of 10 to Dale Stephens, with Dale Stephens being 0 of absolute rubbish value. And Ferguson and Mitchell, they're basically. It doesn't matter what you have. You might as well have me last on your bench. I'm not coming on. But you never know. Hopefully we won't go that far. So yeah, in defence though, I've gone for Alexander-Arnold and Robertson. Robertson got 181 points last season. Now, if a midfielder got 181 points,
I know,
and he was 7 million, I'll be thinking, well, he's just in my side. But because he's a defender, and he actually gets more points, so to me, that seems obvious. It's also like a jigsaw as well. So if you want to, say you want to go without Mane or Salah, having TAA and Robertson, that means you can go into a Liverpool match comfortably. You can think, right, I'm going to get... If you just go in with TAA, everyone's got that. Anyone doing anything else is going to be a red arrow for that particular game of that game week. But if you've got Robertson as well, so you've Robertson, Alexander-Arnold, you've got goals, assists, clean sheet, bonus point potential for a total of 14.5 million. Lovely. I'll have that. So for the
Here's a question for you. Just, sorry, while you're talking about Liverpool defenders, would you... I mean, considering how many points you just said they scored, I think Van Dijk only scored like 3 less. So would you be tempted by him, save 0.5 million to Trent and Van Dijk?
Hang on a minute. I'm not having this. This is deja vu from last season when I backed the double Liverpool clean sheets and you mocked me till the end of the earth, and now suddenly you're
This is like
Joe.
No,
you're all right
this is like if you watch Prime Minister's Question Time and you watch Boris Johnson having a pop at Keir Starmer about the things that happened in the Labour Party before he was leader, and he just looks at him going, it's a new leader, new time, and it's a new campaign.
Bojo? That's low.
We have a new setup here. We have a completely different set of price points. We have a completely different set of players. In Chelsea, have got a completely different set of players. Everton have got a new midfield. Newcastle have got people who can possibly score and assist. Wow. So looking at all of that, it's a new season. This time last season, at the beginning of the season, I didn't think big at the back was very good. This time, could be quite good because if you've got Robertson at 7 million, you can move down to Doherty, you can move down to Tierney, you can move down to all these things, but you can't move up to a Robertson. You can run away from a Robertson.
You could do that last year. Nothing's changed. It's the same price.
What?
Robertson's the same price he was last year when it was a bad idea.
Yes, but it was a different makeup there. So KDB was cheaper. Martial was a 7.5 midfielder. There was no Werner. I'm not sure if there was anyone. What was that the most expensive Chelsea asset?
I actually think it was easier last year to have them though. That's
what I mean.
What I'm saying is,
because you need the money, because there's more choice.
But
you need the money from the expensive defenders.
It's so much money though. It's not like going, I wish I had an extra million. I don't want Robertson. I don't want that defender that gets 181 points. I don't want to get that because I need that. It's not. I'm talking. I need 5 million to get Kevin De Bruyne. I need an extra millions and millions and millions. I don't need that extra like 1 million or so. It's like big money I'm going to need. But I'm quite happy to have a defender who gets that. And if he doesn't work out, well then I can move him down.
I'm not trying to say it's not a good pick. I love the Liverpool defence double up, but I don't. The thing is, what like Andy said earlier is what happens when they have Chelsea and Arsenal. The fixtures turn a bit, and maybe they start off and they don't start off very sharp because they haven't been that sharp for a while. The clean sheets don't roll in. How long do you give them before you?
Going back to your initial point though, comparing this season's prices, players, and teams to a strategy from last season, just can't. It can't work out. It can't work out. It's completely different.
Yeah, but the idea of a defensive double up when you're paying that much money for the defenders is the same strategy, because as soon as they don't keep the clean sheets, which I quote from you are the bread and butter of a defender, if they start the season with 3 games, they don't keep a clean sheet in any of them, you're going to be looking to get rid of Robertson, right?
Yeah, and I can get any other defender I want from it. And I can free up money to invest in midfield. I don't know. It's being flexible. And that's what I like about it. But, so got those 2 boys there. And then at the back, it's going to be a 4.0 and 2 4.5s. I think there's a lot of choice in 4.5s. Yes, Vinagre would have been great. But I'm not sure he's going to start as well.
No, normal.
But looking down the list, I've got, obviously, there's Lamptey at Brighton. There's all sorts of players. There's Ayling at Leeds. There's Taylor at Burnley. There is choice, and there's also emerging ones that we don't even know who they are. And of course, it's just one spot as well in the team. TAA, Robertson play every week. I've got one spot going there. Hopefully, I don't have to go Mitchell deep or Branthwaite deep or whatever 4.0 I've got in my current draft. But I do think there will be value in those 4.5s. I'm not quite sure who they're going to be yet, and I don't necessarily really want to make changes. But if I'm only going to play one of them each week, hopefully I've got it right with one of them. And I think Justin for the first few weeks is good, and I think he's the one who's going to make way, hopefully, to whoever emerges. So that's my back line there, and I hope it's flexible because of Robertson. And I think that's a strategy that can work this season, I hope. Because the strategy is there is no strategy. The strategy is I could do what I like because I've got Robertson, and he can become whoever. So yeah, that's my case for the opposition.
No, I'm not sold. But let's move on.
You're not happy because I've compared you with Boris Johnson. So
that is the main reason.
Let's move on. I just want to mention Lascelles at Newcastle is one I've got my eye on for Dullard fans. Newcastle centre back doesn't get more dull, and also there's Walker Peters at Southampton. So let's move on. Midfield and attack. I've put a picture of Son up here because he's really popular at the moment. But
he is, isn't he? Yeah, I'm seeing him in a lot of teams. That's the first question. FPL captain foul. Is it worth investing £9 you've got on the notes, but £9 million. Son.
Just £9.
I wish it was £9.
Penny taken for that.
FPL eye test is adamant on choosing Ali ahead of Kane and Son, regardless of funds. Is he right? FPL Pup, who's the best 5.5 midfielder? Yeah, there's loads of choice for some reason for 5.5 midfielders. Be interested to know who you're both backing. I'm backing none of them because I don't trust any of them. Internal error, Chelsea look great for investment and Werner is a number of teams. Is it too risky to start with Havertz? And Tom Saints, is it worth going without Mane or Salah from the start of the season? Andy, interested to get your thoughts on all of this. Pick away. Loads of good questions there.
Yeah, I'm adamant on choosing Ali instead of Kane or Son, regardless of funds. It's always about funds. All the questions you get, forget the money. You can't ever forget the money. Like in my team, for example, I've got Son. Going down to Ali would let me do more in defence. So it's that trade-off. Is it worth it? Right now, I'm going for Son or Son. I got to get that pronunciation right. And I've seen people compare the numbers. They are quite similar, to be fair. For the whole last season, Ali actually did quite well in terms of numbers-wise. But it doesn't seem to matter when Son plays, whether he's rested for a bit or injured for a bit. He always comes and he always does well. And I'm kind of banking on that now for him to just exceed the numbers again. And obviously the fixtures, we all know how good Spurs' fixtures are. I would say, I guess, for the opening two, especially with the transfers they've made, I don't know if Everton at home and Southampton away is that easy. Plus, they got Man United away in Gameweek 4. But I'm trying not to overthink fixtures too much. And I think overall, the kind of first 6-7...
Add in their European games as well. They've got a rough old
potentially.
Start.
Yeah, I'd hope to see a bit of rotation, but obviously I can't say that 100% sure. I don't know what will happen. Players like Son and Kane and Ali, will feel a bit like Mourinho would just probably play them in every game until they're just knackered. But it's hard to say that for sure. But I like Son. One of the things I do like about him, without trying to sound like Joe too much, because he's 9 million, there's lots of players he can be sold. So one I really want to back is Chelsea. And I've got Werner already. And I don't know which other midfielder to go for right now, but Pulisic is someone I got eye on once he's fit. So Son to Pulisic, Son to Rashford if I can get 0.5 from somewhere else. So there's a lot of players to go to. And obviously we are kind of pigeonholed a bit at the moment because Man United and Man City blank, and whatever. So I'm going for Son, but some of it is because of Joe's price points thing. Because if he does well, I just keep him. If he doesn't, there's lots of players to go to.
So getting the most expensive players in all positions, and then you can always just go down to anyone. That's easy.
No,
right?
not really. This is kind of probably one of the only players where that is part of the decision. But also, he's just an awesome player. Like when has Son ever done badly over a course of
when he
6-7
got sent off a couple of times?
Well,
when I owned him last season, when he got 3 points, 3 games in a row, and then I sold him and he got back-to-back races.
Like I'm seeing a lot of talk about post-lockdown versus pre-lockdown, and I suppose it depends how much emphasis you want to put on like an game like sample size of where he sometimes played a bit wider. But there was other times when Kane was playing him through in the centre and he was through on goal, just offside a little bit. And so I don't know. I just don't. I've not seen any bad things from Son since he was in the league really, and there's great fixtures, so why not back him? He's had a price drop as well, which is nice. Just really quickly on the other ones, I think Chelsea are going to be the Man United from last year in terms of underpriced players. It's just a case of when do you jump on. So I don't think Havertz. If Lampard says Havertz is fit, I don't really see why he's a risk from game 1. The only thing that I'm a bit worried about with Chelsea is how much rotation will there be, and where are these players going to play? Because Havertz has played everywhere. He played right wing, kind of number 10. He can play number 8. He can play false 9. Where's he going to play for Chelsea? And wherever he plays, where do Werner, Pulisic and Ziyech fit in? How much minutes does Mount get? These are the only questions I've got over Chelsea. So I think risk is maybe the wrong word, but for 8.5 million, again, you could switch into Pulisic at some point. And I don't think going for double Chelsea, for example, from the off is a bad move by any stretch. Like, they were so good last year, and they're only going to be better this year for me.
I mean, Havertz, and instead of Salah or Mane, like the other question asked, saves you 3.5 million or whatever it is to do loads with. I mean, really, this. I think that the Man U comparison is a good one, because you can see yourself halfway through the season ending up with 3 Chelsea players. With Pulisic, Havertz and Werner. It wouldn't be that ridiculous, and it wouldn't be that impossible.
If they were all fit, if Pulisic and Chilwell were fit, I'd have 3 now, I think. I just think they're going to do that well. Maybe they won't, but they were so good last year and maybe didn't get all the returns they should have. And now they've added that, and their team's just ridiculous. The going without Salah or Mane thing, I never want to talk people out of doing this, but I will have Salah from the start, because I'm going to captain him a few times, I think, between probably not in game week 1 or 2, because Aubameyang just looks so good, but after that he'll be a captain choice for me. And again, I don't necessarily want to make that transfer down the line. I get the value conversation. You can get him, and instead of him and St. Maximin or whoever it is, you can get Havertz plus another 8 or 9 million. I get that. But I suppose it depends who you're happy captain. If you've got captain options from 3 to 7 or 8 or 9 or 10, and you don't want to captain a Liverpool player, then go for it. But we know what can happen. You've got to be prepared for that. The thing with Salah is, I feel like so much emphasis is being placed on the last couple of games he's played, forgetting that for 3 seasons he's been amazing. What has changed really going into this season? They've just won the league. They're probably going to come first or second again next year, maybe third if Chelsea are that good. They're going to score plenty of goals. He's been brilliant for 3 seasons. Why is he now Salah? Obviously, why is he now?
The concern that I've got with him is that I looked at his stats from game week 30 to 38, and his stats are incredible. They are you try and make a case of him versus Mane, based on stats, and it's impossible, because his touches in the penalty area, his shots on target, everything is expected goal. It's just off the scale. But he only got 3 goals, I think, in the whole period, and Mane got 4. So, if you're looking at, I think there is a case to make for one of them. I think Mane, it would have been nice if he was a little bit cheaper, because I think he has less potential to go crazy than Salah does. But I can see I went without Salah post-lockdown, and it changed my season. Going for Sterling over Salah, propelled me up from 100k to sort of around the 20k mark. And with the amount of options that there are now, I think if I saw a team at this time last season didn't have Salah or Mane in it, I would be saying that's not going to work. Whereas this year, like Joe's saying, if you have got the Trent and Robertson double up and no Salah, and you've got someone like Fernandes in, Sterling, Aubameyang, Werner, Martial, there's so many picks now that I don't think he is a lock-in. What do you think, Joe? Are you starting with Salah or Mane?
Yeah, I'm going to start with Salah. I'll possibly go for Mane. I'm going to captain Aubameyang the first game week, probably the second game week as well. And then I'm not going to. I can't see me captaining Salah for ages. So
no, that's what I'm thinking as
well. For
me,
he's going to make way. We'll talk about it in the next bit. But he's going to make way for Fernandes for me. Or if that doesn't happen, then I'll have to slum it with Salah for a few game weeks, which is fine as well. So I quite like him as a player to start with, because he's a player I'm happy to have. I'm also happy to dump him as well. Salah away from home, not as good. Salah without Mane, amazing. So if Salah and Mane are together and they're away from home, so that's the sort of fixtures where I actually prefer Mane. Or, well, I kept thinking last season, God, I wish I had Robertson and Alexander-Arnold. I wish I had the two guys that were getting assists and clean sheets here instead. So that's what I'm going to do. So I'm quite happy to go without Salah for a little while. I might get him back. I might get Mane back. But that's the way that the prices are this time. It's good. I kind of want to have 12 million sort of available to me in midfield for at least a player or two. So if I go down to Fernandes, I might spend that money, but I might not. I might keep some back. I don't know. I would never rule out going back to Salah or Mane. It's not one of those things where I'll just never have them. I think at the moment, Chelsea are really intriguing. They've got lots of potentially massively underpriced and world-class players, but we don't quite know how they're all going to gel together. We just assume there's going to be goals and assists there, and I want a piece of that. So I would like to spread the funds a bit more around midfield. And I just think, can Salah at 12 million offer what, say, Fernandes does with all those amazing penalties that Manchester United get? And indeed for 11.5 million, Sterling and KDB, they're all cheaper. So happy to go with that. But I think I want to have two heavyweights in midfield. So for me, I want, I'm going to talk about it a bit later, but I want an 8 to 9 million player. So if I see with Son, it's not a question of, get Son in. It's a question of what's his price and who can he become. So for me, I actually prefer Ali at the moment. I don't necessarily agree with that question saying, get Ali at all costs. But Son has been doing really well in pre-season. I think that might cloud some people. Harry Kane has not been there. He went on holiday somewhere and he had to isolate. So Son played there. At the beginning of the next season, if Kane is available, which 99.9% will be, Son is going to be shunted out to the wing. And I do not want Son playing on the wing. I want him playing up front. Meanwhile, Dele Alli is the number 10 at the moment. If they've got really tough games, I can see him being moved back to help out shore up central midfield. But they haven't. They've got really great fixtures. So for me, Dele Alli offers something where there's points potential, plus he's 8 million. So all I need is 0.5 more. I can get Havertz. I can get Ziyech straight there. Pulisic, 0.5 more. If I want to move up to a 9 million or 9.5 or want it, Son, if Kane gets injured, Son plays up front, move on. I can do that. But what I don't want to go is to my midfield without that 8.8 to 9 million category. I like that price. I think it's the Christian Eriksen role. Happy to own, happy to dump.
But you could grab an 8.59 million striker and do the same switch.
I have got a 9.5 million striker, so
yeah.
So yeah,
but you could grab two.
Yeah.
You could like Martial and Werner, for example, allows you to move one of them if they're not performing to a 9 million midfielder with the same idea.
And there's a lot of 5.5 options, potential options. So maximum a 6 million. Fraser could end up, reigniting that partnership with Wilson. You've got Armstrong at Southampton. I don't know, not sure what Decore is going to come into at Everton as well, but he's been, he was great at Watford. I don't know at the moment. There's a lot of unknowns, but I can see Ali's money could be moved down to a 5 million or so. I could try and get 500,000 up. So you see, there's a theme running with my team. It's not who I've got, it's who could I get. So each of my players is a road to someone else, and I don't want to be caught out. Except for that 4 million third benchy in defence.
I just say one. I just want to give a little bit more of a shout out to Son, because there's all this talk about him playing so wide. Again, based on Gameweek 30 to 38, where he got 5 attacking returns. And I just had a look when Mourinho came in, and I think since then, if I've just counted really quickly, he's had 15 attacking returns in about 20 games since Mourinho has been in charge. So I think a lot is based on a few games where he did play wide, and I'm not discounting that happening, but I just don't think he's going to be the player that hugs the touchline the whole
Harry
game.
Kane is back. Harry Kane starts up front. Where does Son play?
Well, but that's where he's always played. He never plays up front when Kane's there.
Yeah.
Kane wasn't out for the whole of last season, right?
No, but he was out for periods of that.
Kane doesn't play up front anyway. Kane drops back and Son
Well, I
drops
think
back.
he did look a bit better, I would say. But yeah.
But if Son is playing the number 10 role alongside Kane, then I can see Son being further forward to him. But if Dele Alli's playing that role, well, then you've got a player for 8 million and you can ignore the 9 million winger who's not doing much. And that's the way I look at it there. And I think, so I had a look at some stats as well. So looking at, just going down my list here. So Son has been doing well in pre-season. I will give you that though, covering for Kane. But he's also been doing well last year in lockdown as well. There were some attacking returns as well. But post-lockdown, so this is where, looking at the underlying stats, there were 25 players, midfielders, who created more than Son's 11 chances. Son created 11 chances. So if you're looking at assist potential there, it's not great. So Willian, Grealish, Lo Celso, Ceballos even, all of them had more chances than Son. So arguably, any assist he got, he might have been a bit unlucky really, because he was averaging around a chance a game. And then looking at shots, there were 18 midfielders with higher expected goal involvement than Son. And that includes Souček, who is a player I want.
Wow, he's a legend, to be fair.
He's a legend.
Ready.
Ward-Prowse. Bernardo Silva has actually got a higher expected goal involvement over that period than Son. So I just think they're better assets for him, of which I think Ali is one. But I'm happy to have anyone who's 8.9 who I think is going to play in a up front or in a number 10 role, really.
They're all going to frustrate the Spurs. That Spurs trio, Kane, Son, Ali, I think, because they're all going to have good games where they're going to look like the best player in the world, and they're all going to have games where they're rubbish. It's just Spurs in general.
I want to give a shout out to another pod if I can, the boys at Planet FPL. So what I do is I look at see where my deficiencies are in this game. What do I not know about? I do not watch a lot of Spurs games. I watch some highlights, I look at the stats, I can do all of those things, look at the strategy where they fit in with price points. But week in, week out, I don't look at them. So James there, I like listening to his version of Spurs and listening to other Spurs fans that they have on as well. And I feel that's quite enlightening. And what that says to me is that obviously Davis is not a player I'm interested in because he moves back into a back three. Whoever's on the right, so there's Doherty, will move forward more in the Aurier role. So Doherty is a player that interests me, definitely. And meanwhile, Son stuck out in the wing, not as effectual really. So that's my inkling. He'll laugh though, probably, because I've said all of that, and then I've ended up with Dele Alli. But I do think Dele Alli has got the potential to be an exciting number 10 for this period. But yeah, long term, I'm not really interested in Spurs too much.
Well, moving away from the more pricey picks, I mean the 5.5 midfielders are giving me sleepless nights, I think, which is why I've ended up not getting any of them and going for Tierney instead. Andy, have you got any of the five? Because there's quite a bit. I mean, you've mentioned a few, Joe. So Armstrong, St. Maximan. You've got Souček if you want to go down to 5. Yeah. You've got like Saka as well at 5.5. I can't remember I remember Fraser was 5.5 a few years ago when he went crazy. But there does feel like there is a new price point there, and some choice which we haven't really had before. Andy, have you got any of them? And if so, which ones? Or one?
Interesting point. Ben Davis, higher expected assist than Aurier, game week 30 to 38. But anyway, I'll answer your question. Just in case anyone was thinking about Davis.
How many yellow cards did he get and how many assists did he get?
Well, I don't know, but if we're talking underlying numbers, the underlying numbers are better than the right back, right?
Well, points on the board. And
yeah, but you can't talk about underlying numbers for Ali and Son and then say it's not a thing.
I know. I'm talking about following what Spurs fans eye test on this one, because this is a deficiency, I think, because I do think with some underlying stats it can tell part of the story, but I really wouldn't have known without following and watching Spurs closely and listening to Spurs fans about Davis's role. And also he picks up, he stops attacks. So basically the attacks from the opponents shouldn't get to their centre backs. Davis is almost like deployed as a sort of take that guy out sort of role. I
would have assumed that Aurier would have obliterated Davis on underlying stats.
Yeah, it's an interesting. I've heard I know Davis does form back three, but in terms of stats, they say Not that he's amazing, but he's very similar to Aurier. But anyway, 5.5 million. I'm currently. I think there's loads of options, but no really good options. Really, there's like a lot. It's a bit like 4.5 million defenders. Yeah, there's a lot of options, but I don't really care about any of them. Like Saka is the one, but there's just so many players that can play wide for Arsenal. I just worry about his minutes. The thing is, he seems like a favourite of Arteta's. He's played.
He could be in midfield, though, couldn't he? Centre mid.
Possibly, yeah. He could play left back if they could cover there, like he did last year. But they just because he played in the Community Shield, but they've got Pepe and Willian that can play on that right side. And if they're going to keep playing Aubameyang on the left, there's a lot of competition for that right side. So he worries me a bit. Armstrong just doesn't usually get enough minutes for my liking. I've currently got St. Maximin, who is probably the most owned one. I haven't checked, but I bet he is. Yeah. And I'm kind of a little bit more confident about that. Wilson and Fraser are there. Not that I think Newcastle are going to become this attacking force. But yeah, right now, that's the one. He's the one I have. The problem for me is, even if I put more money into that position, I don't really get that much more confident about the players. Like, if I go up to 6, I know you got Pereira for West Brom. Don't really know much about him. You never know how a player from the Championship is going to convert into the Premier League. So do I want to spend 0.5 million more? There's Ward-Prowse. I don't know if I'll get any more excited by spending 0.5 on him. 6.5, there's a few players that I would love, like Jota, for example, for Wolves. If I knew he was going to get good minutes. Foden at Man City, if I knew he was going to get good minutes. I feel like in midfield, it's just, there's not really many standout options at the lower prices. So I'm just going to spend 5.5 instead. And I think St. Max was in my team. And the fact that Newcastle have actually signed some attackers who could be, well, they are better than what they had before. Whether or not they're going to be good, we'll have to wait and see. But I just picture now Callum Wilson of, not last year, but the year before. And that could be really good for Newcastle. And someone's going to have to be assisting him, whether it's Fraser, St. Maximin, Almiron, whoever it is. So he's currently my standout, but standout is definitely the wrong word.
I don't necessarily agree about not going for someone like Pereira. You don't really know what you're going to get with him. Yeah, but you could argue that you do know what you're going to get with St. Maximin and Saka and Armstrong, and it's not that many points because they haven't exactly set the world alight. So
yeah, but it cost 0. Like I think St. Maximin got 5 goals, 3 assists last year in a pretty poor Newcastle team. Played less than 2,000 minutes as well. I don't know. I'm not massively excited about him by any stretch, but paying 0.5 million more for a newly promoted player, I hear all this stuff. He's an absolute baller and all this, and what he did in the Championship. But as we know, it's always a step up.
But what you get with Pereira is you get the main man of West Brom. You don't get a cog in the wheel like Armstrong. I get Southampton are a good team, but he's just a guy who plays for Southampton. He hasn't exactly set the world alight. He's a good player, but I can't see him getting 150, 160 points.
Yeah, with Pereira, you're getting talisman, aren't you? You're
getting the talisman, and I don't want to compare him to the greatest budget midfielder of all time. That's maybe a bit of a stretch, but Pascal Gross was similar in terms of his underlying stats when he signed for Brighton for a relegated German side. Were incredible. Like he was creating, I think he created some of them, one of the most amount of chances in Europe or something. Pereira has had the most assists last year of any player in the Championship for 5 years. He's on everything. He's on corners, free kicks. I don't think he's on penalties. They've now signed a half decent player who might actually get on the end of it in Diangana. So rather than just trying to feed Austin and Robson Carnu, and I just think, if promoted teams do, on occasion, start off quite strongly, and if West Brom are going to do anything, it's all going to go through him. So I really like him, and I'm happy to pay the little bit extra for him.
Also, they got Leicester, Everton, Chelsea first 3.
Leicester's got a good game with Evans out and a makeshift defence.
Yeah, maybe. They did all right though post lockdown, even with some injuries. But yeah, Evans missing is a bit of a killer. Yeah, I don't really have anything against him, mostly because I don't really know too much about him. But it's just spending that extra 0.5. What I'd much prefer to do personally is shift that into defence and just have another defender. The only thing stopping me doing that is the 4.5 million defenders versus the 4.5 million midfielders. You get a lot more value in the defence at that price. But yeah, I don't know.
The thing stopping me doing that. The thing stopping me doing that is that I've only got 3 midfielders, so I'll be down to 2 if I
Yeah,
do.
exactly. It gets horrible when you do that
it
4-3-3.
I think it's up front that I'm particularly excited about this season with Werner, because I think we could have a 9.5 gem there. Usually the Chelsea strikers come in at sort of 10.5, 11 even, but Costa I think was 10.5, and I think the people who do set the prices are thinking, oh okay, well we might have overpriced Morata for example, but I think in Werner we've got a really good potential captaincy for game weeks to come, possibly even against Brighton in game week 1. And I want, once again, boring old price point, but I do like that price point, 9.5, because it means you can move up. All you need is another million to get up to the likes of Kane or Aguero, or easy peasy, you can move down to Jimenez or Danny Ings, or even further down. Should Calvert-Lewin explode into goals, you can move there. So I really like Werner, and I think he's really good. There will be a lot of people who like to make transfers quickly, and I can see that Werner, who's heavily owned at the moment, game week 1, to Martial being a very popular move in game week 2, and I think that just shows with Martial and Werner that you've got all of that choice there. So I'm definitely starting with Werner. And I just like the look of a player like that. In the captaincy video we did with David this week, there's all sorts of stats, so do have a look at that or listen to that, because we are very self and David were very keen on Werner, and we could see him topping the bill for the captaincy video and podcast in the weeks to come as well. But yeah, for me at the moment I've got him, and I'm slumming it with Adams and Mitrovic alongside him at the moment.
Oh God, really?
Yeah, because Adams I'm keen on. I am keen on it, Adams. Mitrovic, I was Martial. I did have a plan with Souček and Martial, because Ali and Mitrovic is exactly the same price as Souček and Martial. I was going to bench Martial. Souček was going to come in game week 1 for him against Newcastle. Traditionally bad at keeping headers at bay. Souček traditionally very good in the air, so I thought that was a good move. But now Souček might have to isolate. Well, he is isolating, and that might carry on until that Newcastle game. So I can't do that, and it would have saved me a transfer as well. It'd be great. I could have gone into game week 2 with Fernandes and Martial, while lots of people would be taking either hits or not going with both of those. And I think they're both good assets from game week 2 onwards.
Joe, how are you going to move up from Mitrovic and Adams?
This is it.
If I've got nowhere to run away there, I think.
Got nowhere to run.
I've got places to run. Because you just listed. We just listed all my cash cows. Robertson. Oh, you're spending too much on Robertson. Well, I've got lots of money in the bank with Robertson. It can be moved on. Ali as well. Player I'm happy to have, happy to dump. I'm going to have 1.5 left as well when I potentially move Salah to Fernandes. So once again, I don't know whether Callum Wilson's going to do well. So I can move up 2 other players from Mitrovic. Fulham's fixture.
Anyone can do that. That isn't a strategy. It's not a strategy to make loads of transfers to change your team. Anyone can do that.
Yeah, but
I'd rather be
loads of money.
But not everyone can do that.
Yeah,
not everyone can do that and get high finishes. So that's the difference. Yeah, that's what FPL is. That's just moving shirts around a screen.
But like you say, I mean, my strategy this year is to start heavier up front. So I've got Werner and Ings, and enough money in the bank to do Ings to Martial, and then Mitrovic as well. And the idea of that is when a striker hits form early, I want to be able to make the jump quicker than you, who's got Robertson. So you're going to have to sell your defensive, expensive player to jump on a more expensive train. What
player is it that's going to do well? So you've got to look at the prices of the players, and who is it? Who is it that I'm going to be desperate to get?
Well, Martial,
Wilson, Antonio, Chris
Kane.
I'm not going to be desperate to get Antonio with West Ham's fixtures from game week 2 onwards.
Yeah,
that's
but
just not going to happen.
We're talking but what if you want to upgrade any of them? You're going to have to sell a second player, right?
Well, that's what I've got with that. Yeah, I'll have to sell a second player, but I'm going to have money in the bank from game week 2. I'm going to have money in the bank from game week 3 as well, because I definitely want Man City somewhere.
I'm just really surprised. I'm really surprised that you talk so heavily about price points and you're starting with 2 6 million forwards.
Well, the other way it was, the way the prices are working out is I've seen this in a lot of teams, starting with Armstrong and St Maximum. So you sort of either go two 5.5s or 2 6 millions. I think there is a lot of choice around the 6 million mark, and 6.5 as well, which is very easy to get to from 6 million. So I'm probably going to want one of them. There's the other thing, Brewster, 4.5. Rumours are that he'll go somewhere. So if Brewster, who is a good young striker, if he goes to, I don't know, whatever, for the sake of argument, Villa or Sheffield United, somewhere like that, suddenly you've got a playing 4.5 striker. So then you can downgrade. I could downgrade my Mitrovic and then pour some money. Maybe Pereira will appeal to me. It's more looking at players I sort of want as well. But with Mitrovic, yeah, I've got money with other players. You can't get every player within one move. It's just impossible. Any player within 2 moves, that is a realistic aim. Any player in one move, I can't go into a season with that. That's insane. I'm not a magician.
But if one of those 6 million forwards was a 6.5 million forward, then you'd be able to move to Wood, Antonio, Mopé, Wilson. Any of them, you're going to have to use 2 moves to just get that 0.5.
Traditionally in FPL, the big points with your captains, your big expensive players, your premium assets as well. Am I going to be that desperate to get Chris Wood in? I like Chris Wood, don't get me wrong. I love my New Zealand strikers. I like ex-Brighton players, and he's great for Burnley. But am I going to be so desperate to get Chris Wood in? I'm going to think, I've got to hack my team apart. What have I done, Joe?
No, but you might be desperate to get rid of Adams and Mitrovic.
Why would I be desperate? I mean, what's going? If
because
you
you're
get a
using
red
2
card,
striker spots on Adams and Mitrovic. That's awful.
I must admit, given everything you said, I was a bit surprised to see that too.
Well, Mitrovic is just, he's just there because he's a talisman for Fulham and he'll start, and that's what it's all about at the beginning. And I've seen other teams with, like, say, Bamford in at 5.5. I don't want to go there. I don't want to go Bamford deep. But Mitrovic is about as low as I want to go there. But I think there's options. Let's see. I mean, what it is it sounds like I'm really adamant about, like, when I get a player like Mitrovic, I'm not like, oh God, got to get Mitrovic. But I look at that and think, no, I don't want Mitrovic. But who do I else want? And that's what they're all about in this team. Game week 1 is just, who knows? Who knows what's going to happen? You wanna hope you're going to get a good score, but it might not happen the first game week. I just want to have that flexibility to move on.
Good stuff. Man United, Man City.
Yeah. Been waiting for this.
Talk about them. I don't think. Yeah, not really. To be honest, I don't think you're going to expect what I'm going to say about this. But basically, some questions about Man United, Man City strategy, of course, because they don't play in game week 1. Blank fixture, and then obviously they come in at game week 2. So FPL Rover said, is it viable to bench a Man United attacker in game week 1? Is there a case for benching a Man United defender instead, given the poor fixtures for other premium defenders? That's what I was saying with Luke Shaw. I think potentially a good option. Maybe even Wan-Bissaka if you want to spend that bit extra for guaranteed starts or whatever. And then Shane, simply Shane, is it better to just go for a City and Man United midfielder from game week 1 and bench them, given we will want them anyway? So, Az, what are you doing with these 2 teams? You starting with any? When are you bringing them in?
Is my audio gone?
No, I can hear you still.
No, we can all hear you.
Okay, cool. I don't know what happened there. Well, I've got my money in the bank to do Ings to Martial, so I've got 0.5 in the bank to do that, because I think a United player game week 2 is you've got to have a plan for it, because that Palace at home game it could be a bloodbath. I don't like the idea of keeping a player that expensive on my bench though. The only one I'd probably consider doing that with would be maybe Greenwood or Foden. Foden if you think he's going to get a run in the team. Greenwood if they don't sign Sancho in the next few days. I think they're both players who could far outscore the price they're in. But I have seen teams with Martial and Fernandes and stuff on the bench, and I think I'd rather take a punt on someone like Son or take a punt on someone who could get more points, even if it means taking a hit, just because you might hit a player who does well in the first week. Because otherwise you're looking at starting someone like I'm thinking of doing, starting like Yves Bissouma or Lamina of Fulham, or someone, or Mitchell, a player you don't really want to play, and I don't know, almost sacrificing a spot in your team just to save yourself one transfer, I don't think is that sensible personally. But it's up to you if you don't want to do that. I mean, in terms of which ones to get, I'm just talking about. I think City, we can probably wait until after that Wolves game, but United, as it's so pressing, I'm going to be going for Martial. But the one I really, really want is Rashford. I mean, the player who scored the same amount of goals as Martial last season, and they've swapped positional classifications. I think Rashford at 9.5, he could absolutely storm it this season.
It's just worth remembering that a few of them were penalties. About 5 were penalties. So, but I do agree. I do think Rashford probably is.
But then he's getting more points for the goals anyway, so that kind of makes
it. Exactly. Clean sheets as well, which we know they're one of the best defensive teams in the league, as I've been saying.
Yeah. I haven't seen many people really considering him, so I really like him as a kind of a more sort of left field pick.
I think it's just what you said. Like it's much easier. It feels easier anyway to have Greenwood on the bench. But if you have Rashford on the bench, it's quite a bit more. I don't think it's... If you really want them, if you're 100% certain that you want them for Game Week 2, I don't really see an issue with benching them as long as you've got a good player. Like if it's a £4.5 million midfielder, you're basically saying I've got 10 men almost for this week. And then I'd maybe rethink. But I do think if you're 100% certain you want one, I think I would maybe save a transfer because... Everyone's thinking about Man United, Man City, but there is other stuff that could happen as well that we might have to react to too. And then you're starting to talk about potentially hits, and it could be worth it. I'm not saying it's not, but I think if you know you want them, you could start with them.
Yeah, I mean, the advantage of not starting with them is that you have a bit more time to decide on who you want, which I know you won't have any more information, than we've got now probably. But there might be another week. Sancho might come in, which makes Greenwood a less appealing pick. They might sign another striker. You never know. There's still time for something to change with that lineup. I mean, the issue for me is that with Ings only being a little bit cheaper than Martial, I really like the idea of Ings again in that Palace game and having him, because if he smashes in a hat trick in that game, I mean, it's going to give me a decision to make. But I'd probably still make the switch over to Martial for that Palace game anyway. But then I've
get
got
a price raise as well, probably.
Yeah.
If he gets a hat trick, he's going up 0.2 million. That's for sure.
Exactly. Yeah.
I mean, Joe, what do you think? And here's the other question, right? This is the question I never see asked. It's always, how are you bringing in Man United players? What about should we own Man United players in Game Week 2? Bearing in mind who we're going to have to take out. Do you think they're must own?
Yeah, I do. I think the fixtures are great. Manchester United, great fixtures. That equals goals and assists and points. So I definitely want a piece of that. As I said, I really want Martial and Fernandes for Game Week 2. That would be my ideal situation. And Souček, I think, is the key to that. I would love to get Souček in and then Martial. There we go. And it's a nice plan. I like it, but I just don't think he's going to start. And if I get some inkling... I mean, this brings into something we're going to be talking about a lot on the Scoutcast for the rest of the season. And that is about following the news. And I've got to keep on. So I'm going to try and keep on top of the will Souček start idea, because basically we assume he's fit. He's basically got a negative test, we think, and he's isolating as a precaution. If that ends before and he's ready to go for that Newcastle game, then Souček and Martial in for Ali and Mitrovic is a done deal for me. I'm really keen on that, and that was my original plan. But I'm not sure about that. But yeah, I think Manchester United, they're so well owned as well. It's ridiculously well owned, and they're such a popular side globally. They're just going to rocket up in ownership. They're going to rocket up in value.
You don't have time to wait.
I'm not getting any. I don't think I'm getting any.
What? Are you mad?
What?
The thing is, right, you look at my team. Who am I selling? Who am I selling to get my? This is my key thing, right? So I've got Werner. So I can get Greenwood, but I'm not that excited about Greenwood really. Rashford's the one I'd want, so I'd have to find 0.5 million. Later on, I could probably do that. Aubameyang to De Bruyne, Aubameyang to Sterling would give me that money. But I don't necessarily have that money. And like with the fixtures, let's not forget Spurs also have good fixtures. So if Son isn't stood on the touchline the whole game, he could be a really good player. So if he's doing well, then suddenly I don't want Man United player. So That's my only issue. Like everyone's saying, how are you going to get Martial? I don't know. I've got Werner instead. Do I need Martial? Maybe I do. Maybe that Crystal Palace game's so good. But let's not forget how good Chelsea's fixtures are after.
I can't believe
they've
you're
gone
not
up in
going to
price now. Yeah, see, that's what I said all along. I'm not biased. They were just good picks.
No,
last year,
I know.
you know?
I think an important theme is get players in that you're happy to have and you're happy to dump. And I think that's going to be a good thing with so many massively priced premium picks that have potential to do well, and there'll be potentially strong captaincy shouts. And I like the idea of captaining Fernandes against Palace in game week 2.
I really like Bruno. One thing I would say is we don't know how Van der Beek or Van der Beek, I don't know how you pronounce it yet, where he's going to play. If he's going to play at all. If he does, will Bruno Fernandes step back a bit? Will he be the attacking player? We don't know that. And also, like, if you look at, I feel like with Bruno Fernandes, we are heavily relying on penalties. Like, if you look at when he came into the side for XG non-penalty, there's a lot of players ahead of him. And Nketiah, Adams, Almiron, Gale, Welbeck, they're all ahead of Bruno Fernandes. And even if you stick it on expected assists because you think he's the main creative force, there's not as many players ahead of him. But Antonio, Bernardo Silva, Grealish, McNeil, Bowen. This is from when Bruno Fernandes stepped into the Man United team. So he was really good for us, but from an underlying numbers perspective, without the penalties, it suddenly doesn't look as good. And let's not forget, he's not 8 million anymore. He's 10.5 million. That's really.
I agree. I think he's a bit much considering the amount of other options
This is classic week before deadline. Bruno
I've not had him
Fernandes
once.
is a terrible
I've not had him
pick
once.
now. What have we come
He's
to?
not a terrible pick,
lads?
but I don't think given the amount of other options there are, 10.5 is worth it. When you'd have to take out one of Salah or Werner or Aubameyang.
Don't get me wrong. If we get 14 penalties, he'll be the best player in the game. But if that doesn't happen, you're a big fan of underlying numbers. What's so good about Bruno?
Manchester,
for 10.5?
yeah, underlying value. He gets penalties, and that is a powerful thing, because he's got the players to get penalties. In Greenwood, Martial, and Rashford, and we've seen it time and again in FPL. Gerrard, do you remember Gerrard when he wasn't the force he quite was, but he kept getting loads of penalties.
He's just a more expensive Milivojevic.
I tell you what,
don't quote me on that.
I tell you what, it's fascinating with all looking on Twitter, looking on Fantasy Football Scout, the way people's minds work during pre-season, and the week before. Is doubts suddenly. Oh, I've got doubts over Salah. I've got doubts over Fernandes. I've got doubts over Robertson. TAA will be next. You'll be having a pop at him
because
next.
there's so many options, which there hasn't been before. That's the thing.
The thing is, a lot of people are earmarking this Crystal Palace thing. Well, I'll captain Bruno against Crystal Palace, but are you really not going to captain Aubameyang against West Ham instead?
I've got a choice, haven't I?
Yeah.
I've got a choice.
Yeah, of course, but what I'm saying is you're selling Salah for Crystal Palace at home game, which is fair enough. Maybe Bruno Fernandes will do better than Salah against Chelsea, but I don't think anyone's going to captain him if they've got Aubameyang. Simple as that. So it's 10.5 million. You're relying maybe on penalties a bit, which could happen against Palace, of course. Then it's Brighton away, Spurs at home. I don't think many people are captaining him there. I just think it's a big deal that he's not 8 million anymore. He's 10.5. It's not to say that he's going to be a bad option all season, but right now, I've not got no plans for him.
I thought I'd never hear you, Andy, say that Fernandes wasn't a good pick.
I'm not saying he's not a good pick. I just think for 10.5 million, it's a bigger conversation, right? He's 10.5 million.
No, I
he's
agree.
not cheap anymore.
Yeah, I completely agree. I'd much rather have Rashford $1 million less.
I can get Pulisic for 2 million less. Like that's a big saving, and you look at all the numbers. Chelsea did better than Man United last year. Expected goals, all that kind of stuff, and they've got better players now. They're a better team. So I don't know. The price puts me off basically for him.
I don't know. It's funny because I keep saying it. Just this final week before people's minds are melting. Like I've
not had him at all.
This isn't.
I've not had him at all. I've not once even considered having a Man United player apart from Greenwood. That's it. That's the only one I've considered.
You're going to have Fernandes for game week 2, Joe?
Hopefully, yeah.
How?
Get Salah.
For Salah.
Yeah.
For Salah. Right.
Yeah, I don't. But when you get game week 3, Salah's got Arsenal at home, who've been poor defensively for ages. Boom, could be a captain option game week 3.
I don't know. One thing I am going to do though is get rid of Aubameyang in game week 3 for KDB or Sterling.
Everyone's doing that, aren't they?
And that's what everyone's doing. So I thought everyone was going to be doing Salah to Fernandes, but apparently
guaranteed that's going to burn everyone that does it. Guaranteed.
They always say that. That's the fear, but you didn't. But did it burn you towards the end of last season when you got rid of Salah?
Well, no, but everyone wasn't doing it. This is what I mean. Everyone's going to be selling Aubameyang for that.
And let's not forget as well, right? The end of last season, Liverpool had won the league. They were hungover. Like, it was a totally different situation. Now they're back to trying to win the league, and I get it. Back-to-back titles is difficult.
Salah
Maybe the
doesn't
hunger
drink. How
won't
was
be
he
there as
hungover?
much, but
Robertson
the
was
team
hungover.
was. Like, we know they were poor. Like,
But have they got that same drive to end the wait? They've done it now. Like their game is so.
That is the
built.
question, of course. Yeah,
their game is so built around intensity. I do want if their intensity's dropped off, then they won't be like they have been the last few years.
Sorry, news just in. Ben Davies got no goals or assists in post lockdown. So. Anyway, that was an aside from our defender. Cool. Just popped up on the screen.
How many did Aurier get? Get?
Aurier got... I don't think he got any either.
I
got one assist. He got one assist.
An extra million on Doherty then.
He got one assist. There you go.
One assist in 8 games. All right, I'll spend 1 million on Doherty. Definitely.
But yeah, anyway. So yeah, stats just in. Shall we move on, Andy, to... next 4 fixtures. So usually we look at clean sheets, don't we? But we're still broadening it out a bit now, and we'll look at the next 4 fixtures in terms of the sort of players we might want, but also the sort of teams to target for attack and defence.
Yeah, so you might have seen on, they're not muted, on Twitter, on site, that Fantasy Football Scout is now partnered with Football Index. So if you want to try it out, there's a link in the description below. 18 plus, it is gambling, all that jazz. Essentially a stock market for players, so you can buy and sell shares in players. And the good thing is it's a bit like fantasy, so you can kind of predict who's going to do well and maybe make some cash off of it. So the idea for this segment is, of course, we're talking about FPL players, but we're still thinking about maybe who could do well on Football Index over the next kind of 4 weeks. Obviously, if they're maybe players you agree with, you could look at bringing them in and stuff like that. So yeah, like I said, there's a link in the description below if you want to try it out. But rather than just focus on clean sheets, we can maybe look at some players that are going to do well over the next 4 weeks. Obviously not going to go through every single team because... that'd be crazy. But one thing I'd like to get your opinions on, because I'm quite big on him, especially because I've already seen what he's been saying in the chat. Everton after Spurs, West Brom, Crystal Palace, Brighton. I think their players are going to do well. Decore, Allen, and James Rodriguez now added to the team. What's your thinking? Anything going to do well?
Yeah.
I know where this is leading.
Well, I'm keen. I want... This is... I mean, Ali could easily become 2014 World Cup hero Rodriguez. Easily. Decore as well, I look at.
That's such a good buy. How many times have we said, watching Watford, how good Decore is?
I know, I can't
and how he can
believe
play for a different
Not for
team.
FPL, but Allen is a really good buy as well. I've been trying to get hold of some stuff. I haven't, sadly, for this Scoutcast, but will do eventually. But I think he's going to be an excellent asset in real-life football for them, and that's going to translate, I think, to points elsewhere. And that could mean that Calvert-Lewin becomes an option. Richarlison, people mocked and Richarlison being moved to a forwards, but he could be an option if he's got that midfield behind him. And also, we've seen it lots of times before, their defence could become better as well. Luca Dean was a bit of a forgotten man last season, but I'm interested in him. So it's
he's going to lose his set play zone.
Yeah, that's a bit of a worry. Here's a stat for you, right? In the rate my team section on Scout, Fantasy Football Scout, Lucas Digne, for the first 4 game weeks, is second for defenders' predicted points, just because of how good those fixtures are. And I think with the midfield there, I actually don't think it's that bad a shout. Trent's obviously first, and then Robertson's just behind him, very, very close. But with the fixtures, honestly, I think Everton have maybe been a little bit overlooked. That'll probably change in the next few days.
Yeah. Well,
it's a similar thing. It's a similar thing to Chelsea, right? Are all 3 of those new midfielders going to be fit to start? How will they gel together? But they're just such good players. I feel like it's not going to take that long.
Calvert-Lewin is so out of place in his Everton team. He's the weakest link by such a huge margin.
A lot of people, obviously, it's that whole post-lockdown versus rest of the season. How much difference did that make? Like, he didn't score. Like, I can't sit here and say he did well. But he scored, 13 goals for the rest of the season, 29 weeks. It's not a bad return for someone who's only 7. And like a West Brom, Crystal Palace, Brighton, 3 out of the first 4. I think he's good. I think he could be good. I think I'm the only one. It's just that price point, right? It's annoying. 7 million when you got to spend like 0.5 or $1 million extra. Really, really quickly, what do you think about Southampton instead? Because a lot of people are on Adams. Obviously, Ings. What do you think about Ings and Adams? Obviously, there's a big price difference, but Interested in either of those?
I was impressed with Adams post-lockdown, and I think he has the potential to be undervalued. Let's see. Ings, I mean, I'm not going to argue against Ings. 8.5 I still think is a good price for him. I have toyed on occasions with Ings and Adams, and then just dump whichever I don't want and move on from whichever one it is. But yeah, I don't think it's a problem. Well, we could be that. I mean, on the on the podcasts and videos, just listing names of people, and I mean, there's so much choice, and especially so much choice in the first game week as well, because we don't have those 4-week stats to go on. We're going on post-lockdown stats. We're going on like season-long stats. We're going on some pre-season form. Internationals even. There's bits and bobs we can look at, but we don't really know what they're going to be like in this season. It is a new campaign. It's new.
Here's one last question for you then on this. Let's say you can only have one. You've only got space for one £6 million forward. Do either of you see any reason to go Adams over Mitrovic?
Yeah, I was going to say. I mean, the key thing with Adams is he's got the fixtures. The fixtures are great for Southampton, and if I'm going to be moving Ings up to Martial, I do actually really like Southampton attacking wise. Post lockdown they were just absolutely brilliant, and it could continue. And he looked good. I think there's definitely a case for it. Again though, and I think the other one is Rodrigo of Leeds as well. If he's going to be the main striker for Leeds, if you think they're going to do well this season and start strongly, he could be. His record isn't amazing in terms of goal scoring, but he's another one to add to the mix. I think all three of those are actually quite similar in terms of their potential, but everyone seems to be flocking to Mitrovic. So I like the idea of going for one of the others, to be honest.
I think most Leeds fans seem to think that just the way Bielsa is, Rodrigo won't even start the season, but it'll take a little bit of time to bed in. But that's not necessarily a bad thing when you look at the fixtures. Like Leeds fixtures are pretty bad to open, so maybe he'll be one, for down the line. But yeah, yeah, there you go. I like Everton though. I must admit, I'm taking a punt on Calvert-Lewin.
Hey, I'm going to talk about a differential now. And looking at Tottenham's fixtures, Everton, Southampton, Newcastle. So they've got Everton and Newcastle at home, Southampton away, and only really Manchester United away is tricky, I would say. Nice run of first 4 games. So that's what we're looking at, this differential, next 4 game weeks. So as I've said, Dele Alli is my one. Ownership 2.6% as well, so instant, lovely differential. Now, this is going to depend on a few things. It's going to depend on me talking to more Spurs fans. It's going to be seeing whether he is nailed on as number 10, and that's why I want him. I want him to be assisting and scoring, and hopefully Doherty is getting in some good crosses and passes to those forward players. So that's what I want from him. So over the season, he got 8 goals and 4 assists, which is sort of okay for 8 million, but that's from just 21 starts as well, because he did have some injuries. So there's attacking returns there. We know he's capable of hauling. He does have pedigree for that, even in a Mourinho side. A shot in the box every 57 minutes for Dele Alli. That's just 7 minutes shy of Harry Kane, who people, rightly or wrongly, are spending 2.5 million or. Obviously, Son is another asset there, but he's not a differential. So that's why I've gone for Ali. I think he's a good bet here. Ownership aside, I just think he's probably potentially the best Spurs asset at the moment, I hope. But a good differential. Shall we move? Oh, sorry.
Just one thing.
Muted for me.
I'm afraid you're muted there, which is.
Okay. One thing I'll say quickly on Ali, because I'm not massively against him. I actually looked at his minutes per return last year. I think it was something like, I did this about a week ago, but it was around 130 minutes per return, goal or assist. And I look back at his 18 goals, 11 assist season, and back then it was about 105 minutes. So that is, 25 minutes, I guess, is quite a long time, but it wasn't as bad as I thought he had been. So I think he was actually probably a bit better. And given that he had limited minutes, if he can stay fit and play as that second striker, I do like. When we see our teams in a minute, Son to Ali is definitely something I am considering just to put more money in defence. So
I think.
Yeah, good pick. You are back.
I'm back.
Excellent.
Yeah, just really quickly, what I was about to say, because it might be the most insightful thing ever. It's not. Just that he's had these injury problems. Spurs have got, as someone pointed out in the chat, 2 games a week for foreseeable. They've got options in the number 10 position with players like Lo Celso, who might play there, or Lamella's played there before. I don't think he's going to start every game.
They have a brutal early run as well, and this is why I need to get some insight from Spurs fans from as well. But their League Cup game, which is early on, is against who's again? Leyton Orient, is it? But it's basically a restable game for Ali, and that's what I was looking for. I was not looking for like Newcastle or Brighton or something like that. So it is a restable game there. So what I'm interested in with Ali is him starting in the league. I want him starting in the league, and also I think in those European games, I think there's also restable for him, but unfortunately he'll probably go as well. I imagine he'll be on the bench for some of those possibly. So that's why I don't want, because I don't know where the Spurs are going. They're going God's forsaken places in the early stages of the Europa League, and it's basically you're talking flights, you're talking being knackered basically. So I'm not, That is a big caveat at the moment. So he's not nailed on, and I do wish Souček would be ready to go, because then I wouldn't need Ali. But I think Ali is a good option. Is a good option there. Let's have a quick reveal of our teams. We've spoken a lot about them and about the players, but we'll sort of sum it up really. We'll go with you first, as I'll read out your 15, and then you can tell me any lingering challenges that you're facing, and a bit about your captaincy as well. So no, it's a great team. It's a great team. You should be proud. You got Ramsdale, Alexander Arnold, Doherty, Tierney, Vinagre. In a 4-3-3, you have Mane captain, Aubameyang vice captain, Pereira, and then up front you got Werner, Ings, and Mitrovic. And on your bench you've got Nyland, Mitchell, Lemina, Bissouma. I mean, you might as well throw Donker in there as well. I mean, that's a rogues gallery of a bench.
That's what puts me off 4-3-3. Those two.
So Vinagre could possibly be going to Porto. That's an immediate issue, I would say.
Yeah, it is. And like I was saying at the start, the trouble is I'm kind of relying on him because Wolves' early fixtures are so good. Apart from that City game, he was just going to be a kind of 4.5. Budget sort of enabler who I could just play sort of every week. And if he goes, I think the next best option for a 4.5 defender is Charlie Taylor, who has a blank, and then Leicester. So not a great start for him. I could go for someone like Lamptey, but again, Chelsea at home in the first week. It's really not ideal. So if I decide not to go with Vinagre and I keep this kind of 4-3-3 system, I'm going to end up playing Bissouma or Mitchell, who are basically guaranteed 1 to 2 points in the first week. So yeah, that's a bit of a concern. I mean, I don't spend too long on it because I've got an article coming up tomorrow where I'm going to go through these in a bit more detail if anyone's interested and cares. Who knows? I've got Mane there instead of Salah. I would have Mane just to try and be a bit different. I think Salah, looking at the stats today, Salah is far superior, and if he can translate some of those numbers into goals, he's going to be on for another amazing season. But he hasn't looked quite right for a little bit of time now. He hasn't had a great pre-season either. And if you're looking at swapping them on, so like you're doing, Joe, for Fernandes, then maybe as a bit of a risk or a bit of a differential punt, because he's got half the ownership of Salah, and we know that he can match him. He only got sort of I think 15, 16 points less than him all of last season, so he can match you and outscore him. And I do like him at home as well. So yeah, I'm definitely going to start with one of them. It will probably be Salah, and I'll probably captain them because they're playing a newly promoted team at home. But we'll see.
Yeah, well, Mark FLR, not the Mark that we know, Mark FLR in the chat has come up with a really, really simple solution for you. Get Walker Peters in for Vinagre. There you done. Southampton have great early fixtures, and he's very playable against Palace in Gameweek 1. That's personally what I would do. If I found myself, woke up one morning, hazy, take the sleep away from my eyes and turned over and then saw that facing me, I would say Vinagre out for Walker Peters. And then
the problem is that I just don't really want a Southampton defender. I don't like them defensively at all. I just like if you get a Burnley defender, you've got a good chance of a clean sheet in any match outside the top 6. And if you've got a Wolves wing back, you've got the potential for attacking returns. I just don't really know what Southampton defenders would offer me when I'm having to play them each week, personally.
Well, I mean, we wouldn't play him each
I've
week.
thought about him.
You would.
The other option is you go 4.5 million goalkeeper,
Look,
McCarthy or Ryan, and then you
I'm keeping Ramsdale.
I mean-
and then you go
Ramsdale's
5 million
locked
Sheffield
in.
United defender, and that gives you loads of options for all the other 5 million defenders.
I'm a
down the line.
veteran of the double pivot of Magic Beans, and that's what you got with Basuma and Lamina, and yeah, that's the issue.
Lamina might not even be nailed as well.
It doesn't matter. They're just both rubbish.
They're just the
Play
4.5
solid.
midfielders can be.
I would
anyone.
definitely try and find something somewhere to just upgrade one of them to something.
The other option is, I ditched Tierney, who I'm not massively sold on, and get one of the 5.5, midfielders. So Maximan probably the main one. I don't know. I haven't actually changed this team in quite a while now, but there's still a few things. I'm going to keep Ramsdale though. I think I really like a goalkeeper playing for a team that grinds out 1-0 wins, because they get save points, they get bonus, they get they're like Pope. If Pope had been 5 million last season, I'd still have paid it for him. He was so cheap at 4.5. I think Ramsdale could be high scoring keeper.
Do you think he's as good as Henderson? Because Henderson saved a lot of points last year. That's my only concern.
Well, he made a lot of saves for Bournemouth. It would have been a hell of a lot worse if he hadn't been there. I think he's been bought. He's been like, I don't want to say cherry picked, because that is almost the best pun ever. But he has been cherry picked. I think it is the best pun ever. Because he's come from Bournemouth. To by Wilder, who knows he fits the kind of mould that he wants from his defender. So. And his goalkeeper. So I don't know if he is as good as Henderson, but I think he makes saves, and he can obviously organise a defence in the way Wilder wants. So I don't think there's going to be massive changes in terms of Sheffield United conceding loads more goals all of a sudden. I
think the only the issues I have with that, it's a really simple one with the 4.5s. If Vinagra's out, there are options. Ayling at Leeds as well, not great for game week 1, but I think could be a potential good option.
Game week 1's a problem,
really. And obviously Lamptey at Brighton is a good option there, but it's just that double pivot of doom in Lamina and Basuma. I can't even. It's just the word no. Andy, let's move on. Let's have a look at your team. You got McCarthy in goal, Alexander-Arnold, Davis, the much maligned, but obviously not only by me, Sace, and then you got a more traditional 3-4-3. Son, Aubameyang captain, Salah vice captain, St Maximin, Mitrovic, Calvert-Lewin, and Werner up front. And on your bench, you have Steer, who could be an issue about not playing, but that's what he's there for, isn't it? And then you've got Justin, who looks good for the first 2 or 3 game weeks, at least while Pereira is out. Gordon and Ferguson. So Ferguson's your defender there, and you've only got the one 4.5 midfielder. So structurally, I like this. And I think it's more flexible. But yeah, do you have any issues with it?
Not really. I mean, there's players I've already got in my mind who I might downgrade before Saturday. So obviously everyone's looking at Calvert-Lewin. He could be Antonio, could be Callum Wilson instead maybe. But I don't know. The fact they've actually made those signings makes me quite excited about their first 4 fixtures. Like obviously Spurs is difficult potentially. Although being real, like Mourinho hasn't really shored that defence up yet. And it's been a while, I guess, since he kind of was the Mourinho of old, having his defence like watertight. So I don't actually know if that's that bad a fixture, which is why I'm actually looking at moving Davis on potentially. Can't even speak now. But Calvert-Lewin downgrade and Son to Ali as well. Ultimately, I kind of want a bit more money in defence. And I'm actually thinking of going 4-4-2. And Brewster doesn't really matter, because if I go 4-4-2, it's much easier to get another 4.5 million defender, and I'd have a 4.5 million midfielder. So it's only really the forward that potentially isn't playing. I'm not really that bothered about that. I've got 2 other players that play. So I like 4-4-2. The problem is a lot of the defenders I want are not yet available. Like Chilwell, for example, at 5.5. I just feel like I much prefer him to like Tierney longer term. He's someone I want, but he's obviously not fit. And Tellez is another one. I'm not even sure if I'm pronouncing that right, but if he comes into Wolves and if he's 6 million or less, then he's probably someone I'm going to want too. Yeah, so I think ultimately I'm going to put more money into defence, and Son to Ali, or not even necessarily Ali. It could be Ziyech, it could be Greenwood. I'm not 100%. It could be even James Rodriguez. Maybe I'll double up on Everton. But ultimately, I think I want a bit more money in defence that I've got. I don't want too many 4.5s. I think 5 million, there's a lot of potential options there. So I'm kind of looking at that plus. But Chilwell's the one I really want. I wish he was fit. But he ain't, so I'm not getting him.
Well, I think
I'm pretty happy.
I think you're within 0.5 or a million of a lot of those defenders you mentioned as well, and Tellez as well. I think that's really interesting because game week 3, I think it is, when Wolves fixtures turn for the better. So I can see we've got Sace in there. They play Man City in game week 2, so I'm not too keen on Wolves defence until then. But yeah, with Doherty gone, if Tellez is in and he's nailed on, which he should be because he's a great player, that would be really. Yeah, I'd be very tempted by that Robertson downgrade.
And it'd be interesting to see if they buy a right wing back as well, because Doherty's gone. They don't really have a replacement for that for him either. There was all that talk about Maitland-Niles. It hasn't happened. Like Traore can play there, but long term they're going to want an actual right wing back. So we'll have to see if I might even double up on Wolves defence if they're the right price.
Okay, here's my team. So I mentioned it. So ignore the players. Look at the prices. So I've got McCarthy. I've got Robertson, Alexander-Arnold, and at the moment Justin, because I think he's good to go for those for early fixtures. I've got Ali, Aubameyang captain, Salah vice captain, St Maximin. I've been toying with St Maximin or Armstrong a lot over the summer, and Wilson and Fraser being signed says to me I think there's enough potential for St Maximin there, and I do like Newcastle, and I may upgrade him to Fraser. I may look at Wilson. Newcastle's fixtures are really good. It starts off potentially tricky, but it just gets really good. I don't think they've got really bad fixtures until Christmas time, really. Anyway, up front, I've got the much maligned Mitrovic-Adams mid-price double pivot of doom with Werner there. So my initial plan is Ali and Mitrovic were going to be Brewster, and could be someone else there, or it can be Souček in for Ali and Mitrovic to Martial. These aren't moves I'm going to make in game week 2 or 3 or anything like that. These are moves that if I think Souček is going to start, that's the one I want to go for. But I'm hopeful with this, and I've sort of stress tested it in terms of can I get any player within 2 moves, and I think I pretty much can. But I'm not sure. Feel free, anyone, to contact me on Twitter and say no, you can't get this player in 2 moves, Joe. Think again. On my bench, I've got Ryan. I've spoken about I like having rotating goalkeepers. I'm a masochist. I've got Basuma at 4.5, Ayling at 4.5. I think he's got potential. Leeds fixtures are okay. But yeah, he could be any 4.5. I'm not sure yet. Lascelles, I'm looking for the ultimate dullard pick there, and Branthwaite could be anyone. It's 4.0. He's not going to play. I don't know who that's going to be. It's going to be whichever 4.0 when I listen in to your chat, Andy, with Neil towards the end of the week, looking at the team news. It's whoever they tell me may get some games there. So, but hopefully I won't need to go that far, really. But yeah, just before we go, I just want to say, it's been a little less stat heavy, but there have been some stats because we haven't got much form to go on, so we're going for previous stats. But all of those stats, they've been from the members area on Fantasy Football Scout. So there's lots of really interesting things there, lots of features as well. You create your own tables, but a really good one to do is their comparison tool. And I think the Rate My Team has been mentioned as well. There's a lot to play with there. And as I said, it's sort of after couple of game weeks, 4 game weeks, I think that's when it really kicks in and you can really get your teeth into those stats.
I should just say one thing really quickly. So the price is currently £17.50 and they were going to put it up earlier, and I told them to wait until after the Scoutcast had gone out. So if anyone was thinking about signing up, we could tell them now. So I think it's going to stay at £17.50 till the morning, and then it's going to go up finally to £20. It's a bit like the DFS sale. It said it was going to go up and it hasn't. But now it definitely is tomorrow morning. I got him to stop doing that so we could at least say it on the Scoutcast. So if you're thinking about it, now's the time to do it because it will go up in price tomorrow for sure.
Okay. In the meantime, we've had a lot to think about here. I thought my team was looking okay, but apparently it's all chaos.
Mine's the best.
And Andy's is the best, and as is...
You wait till Basuma absolutely.
Yeah, you wait until Lamina starts racking in those goals.
Oh, yeah.
that's when I'll be eating my Lamina words. But in the meantime, it's a goodbye from me.
Good night.
Goodbye.
Goodbye all.